If there were not love between two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom, if there was not a desire for cooperation, a desire for union, then there would be no water. And so when you look out here in nature, everything that you can see in physical form is the result of a congregation of atoms or molecules who desire to congregate, to cooperate, to create whatever it is in front of our eyes that is beautiful to see. Everything has its place and everything contributes to the whole. So we come to this idea of water being this amazing substance which is created fundamentally out of love. It's created out of the love for oxygen, for hydrogen. It's created out of the love of mother substances, which are carbons and minerals and all those trace elements, all combine in water to produce this life elixir, which, if it is high quality, will endow us with extraordinary energy and longevity. So how do we get back to this water? What does this wonderful substance do for us? How can we treat it? How can we store it? Well, water, juvenile water, young water, is born in the forest. And as it gradually comes to the surface, it gathers to itself minerals, trace elements, until arriving at the surface as a spring, it is mature. It has its full complement of mother substances. It's ready to give. And one of the principal ingredients in good water is carbonic acid, which is a compound of hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. And when you put a glass of very good quality water out in the sun and you let it stand in the sun, then eventually you'll see some little bubbles form on the inside of the glass as the water heats up. And that is the conversion of carbonic acid into carbon dioxide. And all these little bubbles coming out represent the carbon dioxide coming out of the water, represent the body of the water, the good taste of the water coming out of it. And it also represents water for drinking purposes. It's important to generate this longitudinal vortex. While the central flow is a simple spiral, the external peripheral flows is a double spiral movement, a rotation about the central spiral, which acts in a way like ball bearings and facilitates the faster flow of the central core water. This double spiral movement is inaugurated by the emplacement of guide vanes which deflect the water from an otherwise straight path into a spiral path. And these, in Viktor Schauberger's concept, would be silver-plated copper placed in a wooden pipe at certain intervals to create or provoke or promote this centripetal spiral flow. This spiral movement is the rejuvenating movement which endows water with fresh energy, and also because of the movement and because of the way the oxygen is separated from the core water initially and diverted to the outside, certain bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, anaerobic bacteria, are exposed to excess oxygen and die off. And in the process, the longer the movement down such a pipe, the purer and the more bacteria-free the water becomes. Water has certain pathways through which it wants to move, or in which it wants to express itself. It's very important to begin to employ systems or to convert existing systems into ways of moving water which follows the law governing the flow of water, takes temperature into consideration, takes the alternating, pulsating movement of water into consideration, because this is a substance which is a living substance, and it cannot impart life unless it is itself alive. There's this constantly, in terms of the treatment of water and the forests, are the massive inundations in China, in Bangladesh, and other places in the world which are due to deforestation. What happens here is related again to this peculiar anomaly state of water. Viktor described a movement of temperature which from any higher temperature down towards 4 degrees as being what he called a positive temperature gradient. And a negative temperature gradient was a temperature which moved up in the opposite direction, from 4 degrees either down or upwards, anyway away from 4 degrees, which was the condition of temperaturelessness or indifference, as Viktor called it. Now, the temperature gradient plays an enormous role in the Earth's water balance, and it's something which is not really understood, and it's very important that it should be understood, because if it's not, we shall go on having the same series of drought, deluge, and these massive flooding and inundations which we're experiencing at the moment. Now, water has to be handled with great sensitivity. It is a substance which is alive. It has to be treated as something alive. Therefore, it should not be exposed to excess heat. It should not be exposed to excess pressure. All those things we know in our human body are destructive. And the same thing applies to water. As long as water is able to flow in vortices down a river, and to have a movement, a flowing sort of waltzing movement to left and right as it spirals around one bend in one way and one the other, then it's able to generate these cooling vortices. And this always, no matter what the external conditions, or at least to a certain extent, no matter what the external conditions, the water is able to cool itself towards its all-important state of temperaturelessness, which is 4 degrees Celsius. Unfortunately, with many of the practices, hydraulic practices, river engineering practices and so on, water is forced and confined to flow in straight channels, and these channels are really like a straitjacket on water. It stops its free movement. It's not able to move. It's not able to waltz from left to right. All its ability to generate these vortices is removed from it, and as a living substance it becomes diseased. And when forced to move in such or be conducted in such a way, then because it can't cool itself, it warms up, and the oxygen content becomes aggressive and fosters the development of parasitic life forms, bacteria and so on, because the water has become too warm. And its energy, like we have in our body, we have energies which enhance our immune system. When those become depleted, then we get sick. And the same thing happens to water. And the greatest and most sensitive care must be taken of water if it is to fulfill its functions, which is to support life. Because life without water is unthinkable.